It was one of those nights where the silence in the house felt too thick, like it was hiding something. You know, the kind of quiet that doesn't settle you, it makes you listen harder. Jess was already asleep upstairs, or at least that's what she told me before heading to bed early, claiming a headache and that she'd had a long day at work filled with back-to-back meetings and some kind of last-minute compliance drama. She barely touched the pasta I made, offered me a tired kiss on the cheek, and trudged upstairs in her fuzzy socks like she couldn't wait to get away from me. I figured I'd give her space, not press it, chalk it up to a bad Tuesday. I poured myself a drink, scrolled through some emails, and eventually decided to crash too, hoping tomorrow would feel less off. I wasn't trying to snoop. I really wasn't. But when I finally came upstairs about an hour later and reached down to plug in my phone charger that had slipped under the bed, my fingers grazed something cold and metallic. At first, I thought it was my watch, the one Jess got me for our anniversary last year, the leather-banded one I almost never take off. But this wasn't mine. The leather was darker, thicker, and the watch face was too large, with a cracked corner on the glass and a scuffed buckle. I pulled it out slowly like it might bite me, my brain scrambling to make sense of it. "Jess," I said, standing at the edge of the bed, holding the damn thing in the air like I needed her to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. "Whose is this?" She didn't answer immediately. Rolled onto her back with a groggy groan, blinking at me like I'd just woken her from a coma instead of a light sleep. "What?" she muttered, rubbing her eyes like that would help her come up with a better answer. "This watch," I repeated, stepping closer. "This was under the bed. It's not mine. It's not yours. So whose is it?" Jess sat up then, too quickly for someone supposedly half asleep, and squinted at the watch in my hand. For a second her face blanked, just a flicker, but I caught it. That half-second of panic before she tried to smooth it over. "Oh," she said, and the way she said it felt rehearsed, too light, too casual. "That must be Aaron's. He was helping me move the dresser last week when you were at your client meeting. I told you about that, didn't I?" I didn't answer her right away. Aaron. Of course it would be Aaron. Her coworker. The one she brought up in passing enough times for the name to stick. "Aaron likes those awful energy drinks," she'd say, or "Aaron and I are putting together the training schedule for the new hires." Just enough mentions to seem innocent. Just enough that I never thought twice about it. Until now. "You didn't tell me anyone came into our bedroom," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted it to be. "And you didn't tell me anyone dropped their watch in here." Jess shrugged like it was no big deal, but her shoulders were tense, her eyes locked on the watch like it might start speaking for itself if she didn't keep it in her sight. "I guess I forgot. He was just helping with the dresser because I wanted to vacuum behind it. It was too heavy for me." "That's it, Kev. You're making this weird." I stood there for a moment too long, and the weight in the room shifted, like the air itself was waiting for me to say something. I turned the watch over in my hands, slowly, studying the worn-out initials on the back. They weren't mine. They never had been. "Helping you move furniture?" I asked quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed but not looking at her. "While I was gone for 2 hours?" She exhaled sharply, annoyed now. "Jesus, Kevin. Are you serious? You think I'm sneaking a guy into our bedroom for a quickie while you're out getting coffee with a client? That's what you think of me now?" "I don't know what to think," I said, and it was the most honest thing I'd said all night. She scoffed, yanked the covers up to her chest like I was the one violating her space, and rolled away from me. "It's a watch, Kevin. Get over it." I placed it on the nightstand and didn't say another word. I lay beside her in the dark for hours, both of us pretending to sleep, while a stranger's watch ticked quietly between us. The next morning was quiet in a way that didn't sit right with me. Jess had already left for work by the time I came downstairs, and even though that wasn't unusual, something about it felt abrupt. She usually lingered, grabbed a second cup of coffee, checked emails at the table, maybe said something dumb about traffic on the 405 like she was narrating her day before it even started. But that day the coffee machine was clean, the sink was dry, and her keys were gone. It was like she had been careful not to leave a trace behind. I sat at the table with my coffee, the same table where we'd eaten takeout and argued about who forgot to pay the gas bill last month, and stared at the watch still sitting on the kitchen counter. I'd brought it down with me, not really sure why. Maybe I thought having it in plain view would make her say something when she got home. Maybe she'd admit she'd lied. But hours passed, and I kept circling it in my mind like a shark that couldn't decide whether it was hungry or just bored. Around noon, I caved and did something I'm not proud of. I opened her laptop. She'd left it in the office, and even though I'd never gone through her stuff before, something had shifted in me. There was a line I wouldn't have crossed before, But now I was standing on the other side of it with no intention of going back. I logged in. Her password was the same as always, the name of our dog and the year we got married, and I started searching. There wasn't much at first. Her email was mostly work, her browser history clean. Too clean. That's what gave it away. Jess always had tabs open, Pinterest boards for houseplants, articles she'd half-read, some weird list of gifts under $25 that she never ended up buying. But now it was spotless, like someone had scrubbed it. I felt my stomach turn. I went deeper. Her downloads folder was empty, which made no sense. I opened her messages app. That's where it all unraveled. The first thing I saw was a message from Aaron. The same Aaron who was supposedly helping her move a dresser in our bedroom while I was gone. I clicked on the thread and scrolled up. They had been talking every day. Not just work stuff, either. Not just friendly banter. These were messages you don't send unless there's something going on. He sent her photos of his new haircut. She told him he looked dangerously good. She sent him pictures of her lunch, and he replied, "If I was there, I wouldn't let you eat a bite until I got a kiss." Stuff like that. Not filthy, not graphic, but intimate in a way that felt even worse. It wasn't about sex. It was about closeness, familiarity. She called him her sanity during a stressful week. He said he missed her on the weekends. I read every line, each one a quiet slap to the face. Then I saw it. One message buried in a Tuesday night thread from 2 weeks ago, just after midnight, that night at the hotel. I still think about it. My pulse jumped, and I froze, rereading it. She replied, "Me too. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm not sorry either." I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour. I couldn't breathe right. I couldn't move. All I could do was read that sentence over and over, wondering how long this had been going on, wondering what else I didn't know. I closed the laptop slowly, like I was afraid it might explode, and sat there until the sun moved across the floor and the room started to get dark. At some point I realized I hadn't eaten anything. My coffee cup was still full, now ice cold. The house felt unfamiliar, like I was sitting in someone else's kitchen. When Jess came home later, I was still in the same spot. She walked in like nothing was wrong, tossing her keys in the bowl by the door and kicking off her shoes. I didn't say anything. She didn't notice the laptop wasn't where she left it, or if she did, she didn't let on. "Hey," she said, pulling her hair out of its ponytail and heading to the fridge. "Want anything for dinner?" I waited a beat before answering, and even then, my voice didn't sound like my own. "Who's Aaron to you?" She stopped mid-step, half-turned toward me, a small container of takeout in her hand. Her eyes narrowed slightly, calculating. "What do you mean?" she asked, too calmly. I didn't look away. "I mean I read your messages. The ones you didn't delete. The ones where you call him your sanity. The one about the hotel." For a second, just a flash, she looked like she might say something real. Something honest. But it passed. She set the container on the counter and crossed her arms, her face hardening. "You went through my computer?" I didn't answer her question. I wasn't about to argue about privacy when she'd already stomped on what we had. "How long?" I asked instead. She sighed, annoyed now, like I was inconveniencing her. "It happened once. That's it. It wasn't planned. We were drunk. It was after that fight we had about your job. I was upset. It just happened. You don't just happen into a hotel room with a coworker, Jess." She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She just stood there and said, "Well, I did." I got up from the table and walked out of the room. Not because I couldn't take it, but because if I stayed, I might have said something I couldn't take back. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there next to her in the bed we picked out together from that overpriced showroom downtown, and I listened to her breathing like it was coming from someone I didn't know. I had never felt that kind of distance before, not even during our worst fights. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the calm way she admitted it, the lack of apology, the way she acted like I was the one with the problem. Around 3 in the morning, I got up, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the floor until the sun started pushing through the blinds. That was the moment I decided I wasn't going to pretend anymore. By the time she came downstairs, I had already put 2 cups of coffee on the table, one for her out of habit, even though I didn't feel like being generous. She walked into the kitchen like nothing had changed, wearing that loose sweatshirt she always wore on lazy Saturdays. I waited until she sat down before I spoke. "So when were you going to tell me?" I asked, my eyes fixed on her, not giving her a second to warm up or dodge. She barely looked up from her mug. "I don't know. I wasn't planning to." "So you were just going to keep coming home to me every night, acting like everything was fine, Letting me plan vacations and talk about our future while you kept that to yourself? She finally looked up, her face blank. I didn't think it mattered anymore. What does that mean? I asked, leaning forward. You didn't think your marriage mattered? You didn't think I mattered? I didn't say that, she said quickly, then paused like she was trying to figure out how to fix the sentence. I just meant that things haven't been good for a long time, Kevin. You have to admit that. We barely talk. We sleep next to each other and feel like strangers. I shook my head slowly. So your solution to that was to sleep with someone else? I didn't plan it, she said again, this time with more force, like saying it louder would make it true. It wasn't some ongoing thing. It happened one time. We were drunk. I felt alone. It happened. I regretted it. But you kept messaging him, I pointed out, so don't act like you ended it. You kept it going. You still are, from the looks of it. She didn't answer. Just stared at the coffee mug like it had something important to say. I pushed my chair back and stood up, needing space from her. I walked to the sink, turned the tap on, then off, not sure what the hell I was doing. I can't even wrap my head around this, I said finally. You looked me in the eye every day and let me believe everything was normal. You kissed me, you laughed with me, you let me hold you, knowing you'd already been with someone else. I didn't want to hurt you, she said quietly. Well, you failed, I shot back. You didn't want to hurt me, but you went ahead and did it anyway. So what does that make you? She stood up then, eyes narrowing. Don't talk to me like I'm some monster, Kevin. I'm a human being. I made a mistake. You act like you've been this perfect husband, but you checked out a long time ago. You live in your work, in your routines. You stopped seeing me. I turned to face her, jaw clenched. No, I never stopped seeing you. I trusted you. There's a difference. You think routine is the problem? You think my steady job and our normal life are reasons to go screw a coworker? Say that out loud and see how stupid it sounds. She didn't say anything. She crossed her arms, like that would protect her from what was coming next. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scream or throw anything. I wanted her to feel it differently, feel the weight of what she'd done without the distraction of noise. I want you to tell me the truth, I said, calm now. Did you love him? Her face didn't change. That was the worst part. She didn't panic, didn't cry. She just blinked slowly and said, no, it wasn't about that. Then what was it about? I asked. What did he give you that I couldn't? She hesitated, and I could see her trying to find a way to say it that wouldn't make me explode. He listened to me. He looked at me like I mattered. I don't know. It felt easy. I didn't feel like I was failing all the time. You weren't failing, I said. You just stopped trying. There's a difference. We stood there, both of us silent for a long minute. I didn't want to see her cry, and she didn't want to look at me. I walked away, left her standing in the kitchen with her untouched coffee, and I went to the garage. I needed out of that house, even for a few minutes. I needed air. But more than that, I needed to think. Because something had shifted in me permanently. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a fork in the road. 2 days passed after that argument in the kitchen, and neither of us brought it up again. She acted like nothing had happened, like we had just had a disagreement about laundry or groceries, not like she'd admitted to cheating on me in our own house, then blamed me for it. I played along, at least on the surface. I needed her to believe I was still processing, still shocked, still unsure of what to do. I wasn't. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I just needed time to plan it right. I wasn't going to yell, break her things, or make a scene. I wanted her to lose everything she took for granted without seeing it coming. I started by pulling out all the important documents from the filing cabinet while she was at work: marriage certificate, tax returns, property deeds, car titles, insurance policies. I scanned every page and uploaded copies to a private cloud account she didn't know about, then stored the originals at my friend Chris's house, someone I knew would keep his mouth shut no matter what. I wasn't worried about Jess noticing anything missing. She hadn't opened that drawer in years. Next, I contacted an attorney I'd heard about from a client, someone who specialized in clean divorces with strategic outcomes. I didn't want mess. I wanted control. We met discreetly 2 days later. I laid it all out, what I knew, what I had, what I wanted. He didn't blink. Said we had more than enough to start with and gave me instructions for what to do next. He told me to play it cool, keep gathering, keep documenting. He told me not to confront her again unless I was ready to act. I told him I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to let her watch it all fall apart around her without knowing I was behind it until it was too late. I created a separate bank account in my name only and started slowly diverting money from our joint account, just small amounts she wouldn't notice, canceled subscriptions, downgraded utilities. A few skipped dinners out replaced with excuses like tight cash flow from a late client invoice. She didn't ask questions. She thought I was distracted, maybe depressed. She probably thought she had me where she wanted me, beaten, too emotionally fragile to retaliate. That's how arrogant she was. At night, I started recording our conversations. I used an old phone with a voice memo app, left it running while we ate dinner, while we sat on the couch watching shows, while she told me about her long day at work. It was all casual, nothing incriminating yet, but I was building a pattern. I needed more, and I got it 2 weeks later when she came home late on a Wednesday, smelled like cheap hotel shampoo, and didn't know I had been waiting in the driveway for over an hour. I followed her the next day, left work early, parked a block away from her office. She came out around 5, met Aaron at the corner, and walked with him to a bar I recognized near the hotel they'd used before. I didn't need to follow them inside. I already knew what it meant. I snapped a few pictures from across the street, grainy but clear enough to tell the story. Then I went home, emailed them to my attorney, and waited. The final piece came on a Saturday morning when she was at the gym. I opened her laptop again, went into her cloud storage, and found a folder labeled Receipts. It looked harmless enough, but inside was a mess of screenshots and photos, pictures of her and Aaron from a weekend trip they claimed was for a work conference, including one of them in bed together, half covered, smiling like they'd won something. I forwarded the whole folder to myself and deleted the original. I didn't need her to see the walls closing in just yet. The day I filed the papers, she was in the backyard watering the plants. She was wearing those ugly gardening gloves she always refused to throw out, humming to herself like her world was fine, like she hadn't lit a match to the last 10 years of my life. I left the envelope on the kitchen counter, with the divorce petition on top and the supporting documents behind it, photos, screenshots, copies of text messages, even a printout of our marriage vows with the phrase "forsaking all others" underlined in red. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say a word. I got in the car, drove to a rented apartment on the other side of town, and waited. She called that night, 4 times in a row, then started texting. First came the confusion. What is this? Why are you doing this? Then came the guilt. Can't we talk about this? It wasn't what you think. Then came the anger. You're throwing everything away over one mistake? You're punishing me for being unhappy. I didn't answer a single one. I let her sit in it. The next morning, her tone changed again. Can we fix this? I'll do anything. Please just talk to me. It was already too late. She had spent months making choices behind my back, disrespecting our relationship, laughing with someone else in hotel rooms while I cooked dinner and waited for her to come home. She didn't want me, she wanted the version of me that would keep showing up no matter how many times she betrayed him. That version was dead. I wasn't going to scream or beg or fight for her to stay. I was going to let her go, but not without her understanding exactly what it cost. 3 days after I served her the papers, just showed up at the apartment. I had purposely not told anyone where I was staying except Chris and my attorney. She must have followed me from work or tracked me through some app we still had linked. I didn't care how she found me. I heard the knock and already knew it was her. There was a silence between each knock, like she wasn't sure she should even be doing it. I opened the door, didn't invite her in, just looked at her, waiting to see what kind of story she had prepared this time. I just want to talk, she said quietly, her voice softer than I'd heard it in weeks. I stepped back and let her in, mostly because I wanted this over with. She walked in slowly, looking around the place like she was shocked I had put something together that didn't involve her. I didn't say anything. I didn't offer her a seat. I leaned against the counter and waited. So that's it, she finally asked, turning around to face me. 10 years, and that's how you ended? A bunch of papers on the counter in silence. That wasn't the end, I said. That was the beginning of something better for me. The end was when you lied to me, when you took something we built and threw it away for a guy you'll forget in 6 months. She looked down at her hands, picking at the skin near her thumb like she always did when she was nervous. I didn't plan any of it, she said. I know you don't believe me, but I didn't go looking for it. It just happened. I was lonely. I was stressed. You weren't around emotionally. I felt like a ghost in my own house. You keep saying that, I said, crossing my arms. But you never once told me. You didn't try to fix anything. You didn't ask for counseling. You didn't say you were unhappy. You made your decision without me. Don't act like you were forced into it. I didn't think you'd care, she said suddenly, louder now. You always seemed fine, like everything was just going through the motions. You never complained. You were always just there. It felt like I was living with someone who didn't need me. I nodded slowly. So instead of asking for what you needed, You found someone else to give it to you. That's not a partnership, Jess. That's just cowardice. She took a step closer, her eyes glossy but not crying. I know I screwed up. I know that. I'm not asking you to forget it or pretend it didn't happen. But I'm asking if there's anything left. If we can still try. You're not asking that, I said. You're asking if I'm weak enough to accept less than I deserve. You're asking if I'm the same guy you thought would stick around no matter what. I'm not. She stood there, taking it in, like she finally realized this wasn't going to be one of those stories where the guy forgives her because he's too scared to be alone. I don't love him, she said. It wasn't even about him. It was about feeling like I mattered to someone. I hate that it happened the way it did, but it doesn't mean I stopped loving you. I shook my head. If you loved me, you wouldn't have let it get that far. You would have talked to me before it turned into betrayal. You don't cheat on someone you love. You just don't. You respect them enough to be honest or to leave. I didn't want to lose everything, she said. You already did, I replied. We stood in silence for a while, the kind of silence that can't be filled with apologies or explanations. She looked like she wanted to keep talking, like she had more to say, but I didn't want to hear it. I had already heard enough. I'd seen enough. Every word that came after was just a layer of dust over something broken. I'm not going to fight you in court, she finally said. I won't contest anything. I'll sign whatever. I want you to know I never meant to hurt you the way I did. I believe that, I said. But you did anyway. She nodded, wiped her face even though no tears were falling, and walked toward the door. She stopped just before opening it. Do you think we'll ever talk again? She asked without turning around. I paused before answering. Maybe, but it won't change anything. She didn't say goodbye. She just left. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe without checking if she was watching. It's been a little over a month since that conversation, and things have changed more than I thought they would. The apartment no longer feels temporary. I got a couch, some cheap dishes, a better coffee machine, and a lamp that gives the room a better kind of silence, the kind that doesn't press down on you like something's missing. I wake up, make my breakfast, go to work, come home, and it doesn't feel like a routine I'm trying to survive anymore. It just feels like a life, and for now, that's enough. Jess signed everything without a fight like she said she would. I got to keep the house because I had enough documentation to show misconduct, and she didn't push back. She didn't even show up for the mediation sessions. Her lawyer handled everything. It was all clinical and cold, and weirdly, I was grateful for that. The fewer moments we had to share in a room, the easier it was to move forward without getting pulled back into the old patterns. Chris helped me move a few things back into the house last weekend. I didn't move back in. I just went to get some of the stuff I left behind, books, tools, clothes I didn't realize I'd miss. Walking through the place didn't feel like revisiting a home. It felt like walking through someone else's idea of who I used to be. Everything was cleaner than I remembered. Some of the furniture was moved. The smell was different, like new candles or maybe different laundry detergent. I didn't look around too long. I didn't open the drawers or walk through our old bedroom. I grabbed what I came for and left. She wasn't there. That was part of the agreement. I told her when I'd come and asked her not to be there. She respected that. Maybe that's her version of trying to make peace. I don't know. The people around me have mostly stopped asking questions. At first, they all wanted to know what happened, especially the ones who thought we were the stable couple, the ones who assumed we had it all figured out. I didn't give them much. I didn't want to be the guy telling horror stories about his ex-wife over drinks or explaining the timeline of betrayal like it was some courtroom cross-examination. I just said things ended, and I'm okay now. Most of them took the hint. A few of them tried to dig deeper, but I shut that down fast. The details don't help. They don't fix anything. They just keep the wound open longer than it needs to be. What surprised me the most was how fast the anger faded. I thought I'd be furious longer. I thought I'd wake up every day thinking about her and him and everything I lost. But after a while, I stopped caring what she was doing or who she was with. I stopped checking her socials. I stopped wondering if she was still seeing Aaron or if he dumped her the second the truth came out. It didn't matter. The pain shifted into something else, not peace exactly, but a kind of understanding. She made her choices. I made mine. We both live with them now. That's all it is. The worst part wasn't the cheating or even the lies. It was realizing how much time I spent thinking we were in this together. Realizing I was all in on something that she was only half invested in by the end. That part still hits me sometimes, in weird ways. I'll hear a song we used to play on road trips or find one of her old sweaters I forgot to throw out, and for a second, it's like I'm back in it. wondering how I missed the signs. But it passes. It always passes. And when it does, I remind myself that I'm not going back to that version of myself, the one who made excuses for silence and smiled through distance. There's a woman at work I've started talking to more. Nothing serious. Just lunches, occasional texts, a shared annoyance about the guy in the next office who plays loud YouTube videos with no headphones. Her name is Alina. She's calm in a way that doesn't feel forced, and when she laughs, it feels like something real. We haven't talked about anything personal yet, and that's fine. I'm not in a rush. I don't need a replacement. I just like having someone to talk to who doesn't look at me with pity or ask if I'm okay all the time. If you had asked me 6 months ago where I saw myself now, I would have described a completely different picture. Still married, still going through the motions, still blind to what was already happening. And I would have meant it. I really believed we were fine. That's what gets me. The way you can live next to someone for years and not realize they've already left the relationship in their mind. But I'm not bitter anymore. I'm just aware. I've learned to listen better. Not to what people say, but to how they say it. To what they don't say. I've learned that love doesn't die in one big moment. It fades, quietly, while you're focused on work or bills or whatever other distractions feel more urgent than checking in with the person sitting across from you at dinner. And I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from waiting for an apology that may never come. Jess and I haven't spoken since she left the apartment that day. I don't think we ever will again. I'm okay with that. Some endings don't need closure. They just need to end. What comes next is mine to figure out. For now, that's enough. Maybe one day I'll love someone again. Maybe I won't. Either way, I know I won't ignore the signs next time. I won't settle for silence disguised as peace.